Hello and welcome to the very first video on my new Soil and Ocean YouTube channel. The videos on this channel will encourage learning and teaching about history in ways that inspire global solidarity, justice, and sustainability, beginning with a series of videos on how to teach with a picture book I wrote called Moth and Wasp, Soil and Ocean, Remembering Chinese Scientist Pu Zhelong's Work for Sustainable Farming. My name is Sigrid Schmalzer, and I'm a professor of Chinese history and history of science at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Most of my writings are for adults, but one of my proudest accomplishments is writing this book for kids, and so I'm really excited to share it with you today. In this video, I'll give you an overview of the book and the many different subjects it intersects with. In future videos, I'll offer more specific ideas for lesson plans and activities around some of these themes. I'm thinking mostly of teachers in these videos, but of course caregivers can read the book and introduce many of these ideas at home with your kids as well. So first of all, the book is a way to introduce China to your classroom. This is a very hard time for people in the US who have family and friends in China. It's becoming very difficult to travel, in some cases impossibly difficult, and many people are worried about when they will next be able to see their loved ones. We also have to recognize that the tensions between the governments are leading to further demonization of China and by extension of Chinese people here in the US. We know that violence against Asian and Asian American people has a long history in this country, and it's escalated in recent years, bringing increased suffering and fear for people of Asian heritage. So this book portrays China in a positive light. It emphasizes the shared values between Chinese and American societies, and it highlights ways that we can learn from one another. The book introduces recent Chinese history through the story of a real Chinese scientist who studied in the United States in the 1940s and then returned to China just after the 1949 revolution that brought the Chinese Communist Party to power. Many other English language books written for children about recent Chinese history focus on negative stories. This book offers ways to talk about some of those harder aspects of the history, but the focus is on real people who were working to make things better. Kids will come away from the book seeing China not as a place just of persecution or suffering, but as a place that they can identify with, filled with people they can recognize and admire. The book also introduces Chinese art. So in addition to Chinese-inspired watercolors, the amazing illustrator Melanie Chan incorporated a special kind of Chinese folk art called paper cutting into the borders of many of the pages. So many generations of Chinese children and adults have enjoyed paper cutting as a hobby, and some people become truly skilled and produce exquisite cuttings for display. In Moth and Wasp, Melanie typically incorporates into each paper cutting a Chinese character representing a word and then a design that corresponds with that word. And this brings me to Chinese language. Whether you're working with kids who speak Chinese at home or who are in a Chinese language immersion program or who don't know any Chinese at all, reading Moth and Wasp can be a great way to talk about Chinese language, especially the writing system. So when we get to this page, I always like to point out the character Chong. It's the character in the bottom left-hand corner, and it means insect. Then later in the book, kids can keep their eyes peeled for other characters that have that component, like this one, which means moth and is pronounced and this one, which means wasp and is pronounced feng. So moths and wasps are both types of insects, and for that reason, the characters that are used to write those words also contain that component that means insect. So already you're learning something important about the Chinese language. The back pages of the book have a glossary so that you can learn the pronunciations and meanings of all the Chinese characters that appear throughout the book. Moth and Wasp is also a great way to talk about ecology. So instead of using dangerous pesticides to control farm pests, the scientist Pu Zhelong promoted a more ecological approach that used wasps as natural enemies of the insect pests. So Moth and Wasp shows Pu Zhelong explaining how knowledge of the food web and insect life cycles makes it possible to control insect pests without using chemicals. But for me, the most inspiring part of this history is the different view of science that it inspires. In the 1960s and 70s, Pu Zhelong and other Chinese scientists were engaged in something called bringing together soil and ocean, 土洋结合. It's in the title of my picture book, and it's also in my YouTube channel name, and I like to think of it as inspiring a kind of solidarity science. The idea here is that there are different kinds of knowledge in the world. Farmers have a certain kind of local knowledge symbolized by the word soil. They know what kinds of crops grow well in their areas, how much fertilizer to use, when to plant, and when to harvest. Scientists have a certain other kind of more global knowledge symbolized by the word ocean. They know about chemistry and botany and zoology, how to use a microscope to identify different species of plants and animals, that kind of thing. But if farmers and scientists collaborate, putting their different kinds of knowledge together, they can arrive at stronger, healthier, better solutions for all kinds of problems, including, in this case, protecting food crops. So I like to encourage kids to think about the different kinds of knowledge that different people have and how we'll all have a happier, healthier world if we can share our knowledge and work in solidarity. So thank you so much for watching. For more, please check out the companion website, mothandwasp.com. And please subscribe to this channel so that you'll be alerted when new videos are posted, including videos with lesson plans. And if you'd like to buy a copy of the book or multiple copies for your classroom, you can find it in hardcover and paperback wherever you like to buy your books. So thank you so much again for watching, and enjoy!